You're tuned into the Upset Podcast. Tonight we are talking about gender wars. Can't we all just get along? Coming up next. Hey, welcome back to the Upset Podcast. Thank you for tuning in on this Sunday evening. We're looking forward to a very interesting conversation tonight, and we're happy that you joined us. And when I say we're happy, I'm talking about this wonderful group of people right here. Hey, guys.
Hello,
everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Sunday. All right, Mary's right in there. Hey, Mary. Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
So, guys, how was everyone's week?
Great week. Great week.
Pretty productive.
Productive. We like that. We like that.
Yeah.
Pretty
My understanding is
busy.
that we have a new theme song for the program.
That's what happens when you don't come on.
You know, fill
What?
my cup, Lord.
Oh,
Oh,
I
my
lift it up, Lord.
That's terrible.
yeah.
That is terrible.
No. We're gonna let that one.
Yeah.
We're gonna let that one go. But no. I'm glad everyone had a good week. Well, today we had executive committee. Isn't that exciting?
Mm.
Yes.
Were
Did you
there
say
any-
good news that happened today in the meeting?
There's always great news.
Good news happened for me at the meeting.
Yeah, that is exciting. I'm happy for it.
And when I was a younger minister, I had a dream that at executive committee that they moved me to Cincinnati. And I told the president, but that's not even in our conference. And he said, yes, I know. I never forgot that dream.
Wow.
Never forgot that
That is
dream.
definitely a dream. Well, one of the things that came out of there that I said, I'm going to start talking about this every time I have the opportunity is the fact that there are regional scholarships available
Yeah.
for graduate study. So you don't even have to go to an Adventist graduate program. And if you are a member of a regional conference, then the NAD has a scholarship for you. If it's an Adventist school that you're going to or university, you can get $4,000. And if it's a non-Seventh-day Adventist institution, you can get $3,000. So I'll put the link to that. But that's the NAD. If you just Google NAD regional scholarship, you'll see the opportunity. We want more and more of our people to take advantage of this. So if you know someone right now in graduate school who could use a few $1,000s,
Get that money.
Wow.
spread the word.
Amen.
Spread the word. Just want to throw that in.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah. So I'm trying to hold my meal tally, but I can't do it anymore. I'm still on a high from yesterday's service
Oh.
Well,
at Germantown. Usually I don't talk about my church, I love all the churches within Allegheny East Conference, but I just had to shout Tally out, who visited us yesterday at Germantown. And man, I see Tally almost every week on here, but it was just something experiencing him in that pulpit live like that. What a mighty, mighty word he shared. So just check out Germantown on Facebook or YouTube and just listen for yourself.
It was. I mean, Germantown was the church that it was the church, the location of my highest ministerial achievement and my lowest ministerial moments.
Wow.
And being back was a real gift, and the people received me warmly. And I really want to thank Pastor Corey Johnson, who is a phenomenal pastor, and his wife Morgan Waller Johnson, who is just a beautiful first lady, and all of the good folks at Germantown. It was really great to be back. But West Church is my home.
Were you going to say that? Okay.
West Germantown is, but West Church healed me, and I'm grateful for that.
Excellent job explaining Revelation, Marlena. See, right? Getting a shout out, Marlena.
Oh, you preached on Revelation yesterday, Marlena?
Oh no, I did not. I had to do some work for Pastor Dyson.
Okay.
We had a whole
Okay.
group of us doing some studies on Revelation.
Yeah, there's a whole series. Yes. Yes.
All right. All right.
But yeah, that was great to see her in that space Tally. And it took me about 2 hours to have an opportunity to greet Tally after the service because the multitude was, it was a long line, but
There were a
eventually
lot of people there I owed money to, and they were just lined up and
finally see the space. So that was good.
yeah,
Oh,
it was
praise
great
God.
to be there.
Church again. Okay. Kevin Jackson said it was good to have some church.
I think he means C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin Jackson.
Because I didn't remember Kevin Jackson pastoring there, but yeah.
All right. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for stopping
Oh
by.
yeah, it was Valentine's Day last week.
I know,
That's right.
Yeah, all the candy's on sale.
What did everybody do? Those of you who are married, what did you do for Valentine's Day? Charles, I mean, you are our senior married correspondent.
Nothing. No, I mean it's about schedules and stuff like that. I mean, we made sure that we.
Boy, you scared me that time.
We made sure.
Well, we made
our commitment to each other, but it really was not a big day off, a big day of celebration. But yeah, we had our own style of showing commitment and love. Really, I'm just not a big holiday person when it comes to that sort of thing. Because Valentine, it's almost like everything. Thanksgiving, Christmas,
commercialized.
You commercialize and like everything is wonderful, and then the next day everything's back to normal.
Okay.
I heard several people say, even in the news and even in entertainment, they say that every day is Valentine's Day. I mean, if you love your partner, every day is Valentine's Day. And then others say, well, yeah, but you need to do something special. You need to say, I guess there's some truth to that, but I'm just not this big celebration kind of guy. I mean, I don't even like birthdays. I mean,
You must have been traumatized as a child. What is that?
Marlene went there.
Yeah, I was. And that story's too long. So,
well, what about a GP?
Well, I was going to say that America spends approximately $25 billion for Valentine's Day, and 1.7 billion of that is just from candy alone. And so I'm kind of with Chuck, like, forget that. I mean, it's a made up holiday anyways. It's all about, the day-to-day realities and not just the sensationalized holidays. And so I didn't do anything, but we did have a regular date night that week. So, I mean, we just talked about Valentine's but nothing changed for us.
We're continuing in our program of men who shall soon be living outside. What about you, Mick?
I think when you value your partner, you take a lot of opportunities to have quote unquote Valentine's Day. I just happen to feel that my partner, my spouse, is way more valuable than a card or, some little trinket, which I've gotten in the past. But her value skyrockets. Okay. Way above that. So I'm just blessed and fortunate to have her.
Well, Miguel is laying in the cut like a man who got something to say, I'm going to show y'all how it's done.
Well, let me just relay what I heard from Chuck. It sounds like a card has not been written, nor a candy made that can equate to the value of his love. That's what it sounded like.
Absolutely.
That's what it sounded like. Okay.
Yep.
And I appreciate
You're trying
that.
to be a poet, Miguel.
A little bit. The day of Valentine's, I mean, it's tough doing anything during the week. You got to think about the next day. So we didn't do anything on that day particularly, but yesterday we went out to eat at Fogo de Chao. I think that's how you say it. Fogo de Chao.
Yeah.
That was my first time going there. So
that restaurant is listed in Councils on Diets and Foods, from what I hear.
It is. We had quite a bit of Morning Star. We enjoyed we enjoyed all of that. Yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do anything. I mean, we didn't do anything. I mean, it was a work day, which is always difficult,
It's
but
tough. Yeah.
I did get a balloon and roses and a Cinnabon because it's my favorite, you know.
Okay.
But
Sounds good, Tosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
if you got nothing, how would you feel? These people who get nothing.
I listen, I hear everything that's been said, but I'm that woman that I don't care. I still want something. I still want to be acknowledged. I mean, I want to know you love me every day too, but I want to know you love me on that day, especially.
Okay.
That's how
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Well, here we go.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a great segue into
Is it?
Expectations.
our topic for this evening, and we can't wait to have our audience chime in as well to this dialogue. And Marlene, I'm gonna let you kind of just open up. What are we talking about this evening?
Well, hello, everyone. We are talking about gender wars tonight, and I was hoodwinked into leading this out. So I'm going to share with you what I have done. Gender wars. I was looking at Matthew 24, and Jesus said there will be wars and rumors of wars, but I don't think he meant this type of war. So as I looked, I was looking up the meaning of these gender wars. And in one article, Gender Bias Learning Project, they said that gender wars were when there were biases, pits against women, for women against women. And it says when women are required to fit into tightly defined feminine roles in order to be accepted. So women were warring against each other. Then there was another explanation about gender warring, stating that it was the shift focus from war strategies and actor motivations to exploring how war privileges, gender roles, and hierarchies
What that
were
mean?
developed, right? So it says feminine values are frowned upon or projected as those that needed to be projected and cherished, while the bulk of war labor is supposed to be undertaken by men. In other words, women were supposed to stay home and not participate in war, take care of children, while the men fought for their women and families. Um, per the Urban Dictionary, it said that gender wars were those that were occurring online between straight males and straight females. On one hand, you have females pushing the narrative that all men are misogynistic, cheaters, abusers, narcissistic, and uncaring. On the other hand, you have males pushing the narrative that females are superficial, only caring about looks, money, fame, height, unloyal, promiscuous, dishonest, and inherently evil. These two narratives have caused both men and women online to harass and bully each other to the point where both genders appear to be at war with each other. While some men and women do not follow these stereotypes, not every person, male or female, is a quarter as bad as the intent makes each gender to be. If you go out in the real world, you'll see that there are good people associated with both genders. The majority of men out are very loving and humble, and meanwhile, the majority of the women out there in the real world are very loyal and kind hearted. Another focus said this about gender wars. It says that it started in 1531. It was written by Andrew Dole, this particular article, and he alludes to the way in which females have historically been seen as subservient, as secondary humans. His article has gained huge online following for promoting conventional roles for men and women, equating male success to wealth, physical strength, and a duty to protect a timorous and tractable wife. Words of Peter Spearing, he states this in his article. Why do people keep saying we need women when men have built society? Women literally have done nothing. Women are 50% of the world's population. Half of your DNA comes from a woman. Both sexes are necessary. It's a symbiotic relationship. In the days of hunter gatherers, men provided food and protection while women bore children and nursed them. Female
Mm-hmm.
farmers during the Neolithic period worked so hard that their shins were stronger than those of elite women rowers of today. That's on
Mm,
top of child rearing in an age without modern medicine, formulas, or hygiene. I
mm.
want to ask you today, did the wars of gender just start in 1531, or could it be that it started even sooner with a misunderstanding of the scripture in Genesis when God gave Eve a little curse there? This curse was stated, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be to your husband. He shall
Amen.
rule over you. In Genesis chapter 3. Could it be that there has been such a large misunderstanding of this role that there has been created a war between the male and the female? We know that there are issues of respect and dominance and intimidation and ignorance. What say ye? What could be the reasons of these wars between our men and our women?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well,
I'd like to call on Tally. What meanest thou these things?
Hmm. Obviously, whenever you have people of differing perspectives and differing expectations, tensions are born. And I have to ask the question in responding to your question: is there enough difference between the male of the species and the female of the species, generally speaking, to create the kind of tensions that lead to conflict? I mean, are you and I different enough as a male and a female that it might create a level of tension?
hmm.
Well, there is a difference in our species and the way we're created and the way we think, but does that cause the female to be subservient to the male?
Let me share this passage, Tosh, and
Oh,
everybody quotes this one. 1 Timothy chapter 2,
Hmm.
verse 12. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man.
no. Mhm.
She must be quiet. Um, how do you read that, ladies? When you read
Hmm.
that,
I look at it from a cultural lens, a time frame in history where that was what they
uh,
perceived.
when you guys walk into these traps, can you hear the door closing behind you?
I don't care about your trap.
You
Do you
asked.
think is it a cultural thing, Marlena?
I think, yes, a lot. It has
Okay.
to do with the culture. It
All right.
does.
Let me read the text that follows it then.
I
You know,
saw
I I suffer not, and then it says, and then here's the reason that Paul gives: for Adam was formed first, then Eve. That's not culture, that's theology. And Adam was not the one deceived; it was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. That's not culture. That is.
Facts.
So that's why she should be. She should.
I'm not. No, I'm
it.
not
Well,
making a
can you
statement.
explain,
I'm not.
Joel?
I'm not making a statement. I'm simply saying that the text does not use culture as the basis for the assertion. The text uses theology. It says Adam was formed first, then Eve. The woman was deceived, and so forth. Now, I'm not making a statement at all. It's just that when our director of conference ministries and one of our leading bishops said that it's cultural, I would suggest that maybe it's not simply cultural there.
Well, I read historically women were making some sounds in the church and they were asked to be quiet. at that time, his history behind that. So that keeping quiet was not in teaching, but in making noise during the service. Now, Joel too talks about it, and so does Peter. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Now, prophesy is not keeping quiet. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. If he's pouring out his spirit on his sons and his daughters, that spirit is to do something. It is an action word. It's not to sit there in silence, but you have a mission to do. So it cannot be that women are to just be quiet, because Paul gives us several examples of how he's used women to lead the church in his absence.
Feeling mighty good about yourself right about now, ain't you?
I'm just telling you what I know as a woman.
So can I ask a question? So
I was just reading from the Bible.
I want to know if we, as the upset experts, could we all agree that the gender wars began Genesis 2, Genesis 3, when God instituted or made Adam and made Eve? Satan came in and he invited Eve to assume responsibility, right? And you could argue, yes, Eve was deceived, Adam abandoned his responsibility, but their actions plunged us into sin. And the repercussions are clear in the Bible. Now, however you take the translation, but can we agree that God created man and woman? They are not less than or better than, but there were specific roles that God intended for male and female. Can we start there?
Yes, but they were also equal and in his image.
Right. So was Adam the head of the family in the garden or not?
I believe
Good
that.
question.
I'm just asking.
But I always looked at it as, I mean, I do believe, I do see the male as the head of the family. I do believe that. But I always saw, that whole, the rib, coming from her side. I always saw it as a partnership. In that we are equal. We walk side by side. We're in this together. I have my responsibility. You have your responsibility. You're just as valued as I am. This is my role. This is your, and there's a mutual respect. That's kind of how I viewed it idealistically. But
they had to be equal because the fall caused Jesus to, God, we know it was Jesus, all things created by him. But it made the statement that I'm going to multiply your sorrow and in childbearing, and you will answer to your husband. So there was a change indicating before that there had to be a more equality of the two people together.
So can we also agree the fall corrupted the functions of God's original blueprint?
I could
and
say
from
that.
there sprung the gender wars?
Yes, but my question is, listen, the scripture said that the wife must answer to the husband. Why is it that the male society, and I'm just talking in general, has made themselves more a hierarchical position than the role of a woman, when the Bible is saying female to your spouse? Now it is all women to all men. So
That's
where
true.
does this confusion come from?
Say that again, Marlene.
I
I'm
think
not
she's
quite
referring
sure.
to Ephesians 5, where wives are to submit to their husbands, but God never told women to submit to men.
Right.
Never.
So in other words, Tally, the scripture does not say that I am to be subservient to you, right? Scripture
But
says
it would be
your
a good
wife,
idea. I mean,
your wife is to be subservient to you. But we see how society has gotten this confused. I look in the Middle East, you know how women are being beaten if they're not covering themselves, if they act out of tune. I mean, they can't be educated, only the men can be educated. All the women are to do is to take care of the children. It reminds me of Good Times. I don't know how many of you watch Good Times, and Evans the father, what's his name? James Evans would say the woman is only good for the kitchen and the bedroom. The kitchen and the bedroom. And many
did he actually
places
say that?
like that today, right?
Wow. Wow.
Anybody's like that today?
I didn't realize he actually said that on that
He
show.
said that on the show.
Mm.
On the show. And so we look at what it's gotten all twisted. And as you said, GP, it's they've taken the scripture and anything we take, we destroy and make it worse, right? And that's what's happened all over society, which now the woman appears to be subservient to the husband, to all men. So let's go a little bit further. Let's talk about men. Let's talk about men. How do you want to be viewed by the woman? Talking
Like
about
this.
divorce. How would you like
I
to be viewed or received
I'll say
by a
this.
woman?
I want to be appreciated for who I am and not just for what I do or what I can produce. So as a person, I'll let the other men chime in.
Yeah, I think in alignment with what GP is saying. Well, let's also be clear. Are we talking about my wife or just women in general?
Well, we're talking about women in general.
Yeah, I think depending on the context, I would want to be respected as a human being, right? The uniqueness that I bring outside of what I may produce, or what the preconceived notion of, so everyone has a default definition of what a man and a woman is, and those determine how you interact with the sexes, right? And so I would hope that wherever I'm interacting with someone of the opposite sex, that they would spend the time to get to know who I am, as opposed to assuming, or laying on me whatever assumptions they may have preconceived. And I would hope to do the same to the other gender as well.
Sounds good. What say ye, Chuck, my scholarly gentleman?
The word character comes to mind. I think character is more important than anything. You can be good looking and a rat, just a good looking rat. And you can be an unattractive man, but have an enormous amount of character and love and caring. So I think it's character. I think if any woman is a good judgment of character, that's one of the things that I think every female should have, is the ability to judge character, because so many mistakes are made because of misjudgment of character.
As a man, I think men want to be viewed by women as being strong, as having power and potency. It is, I know when I played football, I probably played harder when women were cheerleading than if men jumped out there and said, sis, boom, ba, knock them down, knock them down. I mean, it's because there's something about the admiration and the regard that a woman shows towards you. And typically it begins with your mother, saying, your mommy's big boy, and it carries on. And so there is that level of, and I use the word ego in its proper denotation, but that level of self-gratification that comes when a woman that you regard looks at you as being strong and having power and being capable.
Sounds good.
That's why men have such a hard time with disrespect, I would say.
Yeah.
What they perceive.
Well, sisters, if you could open up the chat line, I want to ask you too, how do you want to be viewed or received by men? Tosh, we'll start with you as our sisters start writing in the chat.
Yeah. I was listening to everything the gentleman said, and I think a lot of it carries over. I want to be valued as a human being. I was going to say I want my gender to be the last thing you notice, but I don't really mean that.
I was going to say lies and deception. But go ahead.
No, I would want, as Charles said, my character and that level of respect for me as a person to be what is received first. Now, Tally, cut it out. No, I do. I think respect is.
I'm trying to remember the last time Tasha went to the store and said, "Do you have a dress that displays my character?" But please continue.
But no, I want. I want to be known for who I am and not for what I look like or what I physically bring to the table, but what I mentally or emotionally or spiritually or socially bring to the table is what I'm saying. Because I think a lot of times women have this or feel this burden of always having to present themselves as, attractive or, appeal to the male. And to me, that's the least of what I want to focus on. What I want to bring to the table is who I am and what I have to offer the world in other areas, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I'd like to add to that what I'd like to be viewed or perceived by a man is a woman of respect, woman of a mind to think, my own ability to reason, right? And not be diminished because I do have a brain, I do have a mind. And so I just want to be looked at with respect.
You ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Mother Teresa and Ellen G. White for joining us tonight and sharing with us that
it is true.
So I want to make sure I'm saying. So you ladies are saying that women when it comes to the relationship, the psychosexual dynamic, generally speaking, of course, that they want from men the same thing that men want from women. Like we talked about men wanting to admiring the character
we have
and
different
strength.
desires.
Beg pardon?
Well, we know we have different desires. Men are normally attracted by what they see in women from what they hear. Got that.
I think too, going back to what you were saying, Talia, about wanting to feel strong, I think there's a certain measure for me that wants to feel protected when I'm in the presence of males. So if something's going on, it's not that, oh, well, it's me. I just, but I do want to feel like if there are men around me, I can feel like they're going to step up and make sure I'm safe or I'm okay. Even if my husband is not around, you see what I'm saying? I do feel like I like that from men.
However, if there's a push for equality and sameness, then should there be an expectation for others to kind of step up and protect you? Or I'm just asking generally, like, is that a conflict to want authority without responsibility?
The protection I would see is the right for all humankind, right? If there's a instance of danger, anyone would step up. It doesn't have to mean, okay, you're just as equal as I am. Hold the door for yourself, right? I mean, I go through the door, I hold the door for the next man coming behind me. I wouldn't say, you man, open your own door, right? I don't do that. But there should be a level of respect for all humankind.
But that wasn't my question, though.
Chivalry.
But I know
reeler in, GP.
I know what you were getting at.
I think chivalry is one thing, and I know chivalry is sometimes hard to define or it means different things to different people. I think there's a difference between chivalry for me, like a man, being protected, as opposed to relying or feeling like there's something I can't do or that I want to do, but a man tells me I can't do it because I'm a female. You see what I'm saying?
Society, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think there's a little difference for me.
Because one of the cries, I'm sorry, Chuck. I'm just
go ahead.
No.
Some
of the guys on the internet sphere, they complain about how there are some feministic women who use their feministic card when it's convenient, but they're, so it's just you pick and choose when you want to have those equal rights, and when you pick and choose when you want, the men to step up and be men. But when it's not time for them to be men and step up, you're dogging them, and they ain't. So
we
almost went off the air.
to add some context to what GP is saying, all right, give you a scenario. I got you. Give you a scenario. Let's say you and your husband, or you and a male friend, are in a house, and someone breaks in.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
Who steps up to defend the house, or who steps up to defend both parties, right? In a world of equality, are you willing? Are you going to raise your hand? Or if he doesn't respond right away, does it change how you see him, how you view him as an individual? I think that's where GP was kind of heading down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marlene.
So I'm like Tosh. I mean, I don't know what woman doesn't like the chivalry of, the man treating the woman special. I've heard of it, but I haven't met them, because all of my friends, we love that. But we also like, to be respected for our mind and our ability to do things, and not be told in society that you can't do something. Now, if I am in a place with a male, I would like the male stepping up to protect both of us. That would be nice. And if I
Okay.
find myself,
right.
I'm the one
Right.
running towards the danger and he's running away from the danger, we have a problem. We do.
All right.
That's probably the last date, But and so, it's what people. I don't. You don't have to go to the one extreme, from one extreme to the other. Can't we be right in the middle? Right. We still want our chivalry, but we want to be respected too. There's some places where, and I think I saw this article that a lot of young guys are going back to being conservative with where the woman, they want their woman to stay in that female role and the male to stay in that male role, right? And so the woman is now to be subservient again to the male, where I can't think, I can't speak for myself. If I speak, I'm being disrespectful or speaking out of turn. And I mean, it's just going to another level. And so I want to get to another place, the root of this war that's occurred. I know I read in the Urban Dictionary it talking about, to me that's an extreme, where men are talking about calling these women, what I want to say, unloyal, promiscuous, dishonest, inherently evil, just gold diggers, right? You have some of that, but that's not everybody. And then some of the women saying that the men are misogynistic, cheaters, abusers, narcissistic. I mean, you have some of that, but that's not everybody. So where does this war? Have we just lost respect for each other, or
No,
what is it?
well, I'm ready to apply my zoom out therapy here. A lot of the statements that we've said tonight, and many more statements that people are saying, we are subject to and symptoms of cultural biases, advertising, and manufactured consent.
Propaganda.
And so we, depending on how you're raised and in what culture you're raised in, whether you're a poor family, rich family, whether you're, there are all kinds of categories. We are constantly programmed. And by the way, quite frankly, in the conversation, I prefer to substitute the word war for politics. I don't think there is a gender war. This is what we've been taught to believe. I really think it's gender politics. And if you use the analogy of politics and war in life in this country, politics can lead to a war or not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
And I think what we're tasseling with here is gender politics, and those politics are dictated by your culture and your advertising. If you go and look at the advertisements back in the 50s and 60s, women were very subservient. They had the apron on, they were in the kitchen, they were the ones pushing the vacuum cleaner and washing the clothes, and that was indoctrination. That's manufactured consent. Women started to believe it, and men believed it. Okay. And so it just happened over and look at today. Look at the advertising today. Look at the internet today. Look at the movies today. It's over and over and over again. We get re-indoctrinated about this quote unquote war. Male being the strong and the dominant guy, the female not. I comically make reference to to Marvel, and I'm sure you all know what the Marvel franchise is about.
Mhm.
Well, I have to say that some of their superheroes were women.
Mhm.
That's
And
right.
they were now in that fantasy land, I mean,
Mhm.
you have to be into that sort of thing to understand. They were as violent and ferocious and bloody as the males.
Black Widow, that's my girl. Yeah.
Hmm.
What I'm saying, but I think that we're all symptomatic of this manufactured consent that we have to deal with every day. And that's why we can't see character, because we're looking at clothes, hairstyle, what kind of car are you driving? Do you own a house? Do you know? I mean, we go down this list, and a lot of it is manufactured for us, and we go for it. That's just my
But
sorry.
I have to ask the question, and that is, if you read the Bible, will you come away from the Bible perceiving that women have a certain role
Mhm.
and that men have a certain role? I mean, does the
Mhm.
Bible lead us in that direction? And I'm not asking if it's good or bad or indifferent. I'm just asking, does
Mhm.
it lead us in that direction?
And what does the culture say about the biblical blueprint, if there is one, on roles like Talia is mentioning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bible would make you think, yeah. In many of the places, unless you know the history behind it, that
Well,
there's a specific role for the male and the woman. Yes.
so it's biblical to say that there are roles. Is it biblical? Let me ask the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's
the biblical parts mostly speaks of the male and one. So when you look at Ephesians 5, right? Women be submissive to your husbands. First it says everyone is to respect one another, but men be submissive. Women are to be submissive to their husband. Husbands are to respect their wives.
love,
Then love.
sacrifice, love.
Yes,
Yeah.
love. And women respect their husbands. That's it. So but then people turn that around and think that that's how all people are to treat each other in the church. And the Bible is talking about the male with the female relationship, the husband and the wife. And then they turn that around to make it church leadership. And that's not the same.
Hmm.
I think the latest resurgence we have, and Chuck talked about that pendulum swinging within the black community, black young millennial social media community. Some of those people are using the Bible to kind of say, well, here's the rightful place for men in their families, and the cry from that community is, let's get back to what our grandparents had established. So they have their own hermeneutic as to how they approach the Bible, and so we see the Kevin Samuels come into rise because of that, and the communities that kind of corral around them, and some of them are Christian men that feel as if men are being the
Emasculated?
status in society, a little bit of emasculation, that there's no spot for men to be men anymore. That's the language that they'll use.
Because all manhood is toxic.
Right. So there was a push with our black sisters looking for equality, looking for safety, and some of that did turn into misandry. And what we're seeing is that push back from the black male audience. We're in a society, and I'm talking about outside the church. I don't know if it happens in the church, where if you're single and you meet a young lady, she might ask you for your cash for you to send money on her Cash App before your name. Right? we're at that place now where these
Really?
things are happening. Absolutely, where people are saying, Cheesecake Factory is beneath me. And these are the public discourse that's happening, that's shaping how people are interacting with each other, and so yeah, we're in an usual space, I would say, for me at least.
So then would you say that we have lost respect for each other just as people, and the expectations are just out of the roof, off the roof of what people are expecting from one another now? Is the real
So,
issue a lack of respect?
so in this era, even the idea right now of marriage can be viewed as oppressive by lots of people because of the lens of power dynamics that we have, right? And so anything that says, oh, submit, obey, love, what?
Yeah.
That's slavery. Like, miss me with that. Like, that's where we are. Like, a lot of people are in a society. But, you know, so can we define, is patriarchy biblical, and is pure patriarchy okay, or is it completely wrong? Can we just identify that?
Let's pray to the Father and see what the Father says.
Because we have a war with the culture that says, you know, patriarchy is wrong. I ain't gonna take my husband's last name, so I'll just keep my daddy's last name. Like, you know, we're confused. We're confused,
You know,
right?
and I think Lillian is saying a lot of this. Patriarchy is a great thing, but I think because of sin, it has diminished the trust. You have so much abuse, whether it is male or the female who's causing abuse in the homes, and to the point that people want to protect themselves. They don't want to feel like someone is lording over them, because that's not how God intended any of this to be. If we were, I think if people were treated well and respected, they wouldn't mind if you and your husband making decisions. You consider, well, honey, what do you think? You know what? Well, let's do this, right? But when people misunderstand the scriptures and they start to lord over, you know, and this is what's going to happen, you're going to do what I tell you to do, you know, then those are the kind of things that make people say, oh, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
I think we had to speak to the history of and I'm speaking purely about our African American community. It's Black History Month, right? We have to speak to the pain that patriarchy has created over the years, right? So we have to speak of the abuse. We have to speak of the outside children and families. We have to speak of the not just physical abuse or verbal abuse, but financial abuse, leveraging money as a tool of power. And so what this generation is trying to do is correct an issue, but I'm not sure if we're using the right tools. Right. So we see the patterns, we see the pain of our mothers and aunts, our grandmothers. And I recognize now that we, you know, Black men and Black women are raised differently, right? The information that we're privy to is different. And so they're looking for different tools and different ways. And so we're exploring some very interesting waters at this time.
Now, that's very good. Let me switch. You, Chuck, go ahead, say something. Then
I just had a general statement and a question to ask. I mean, you know, we live in a society that's heavily influenced by our cultures. And if you go around the world and you go to other continents and other cultures, you will see variations of what we experience here. Okay, so please keep that in mind. We have to keep that in mind. I mean, when you grow up in a household, you know, it could be male dominant or female dominant. It could have plenty of money or barely any money. There's so many factors that influence who we become as men and women. So let's just keep that in mind. It's a vast human behavioral subject. I know we could do 5 parts and really never get to the bottom of it. But the question I want to ask my theologian, retired or no, colleagues here is, I'm just asking this raw question. What was Adam to Eve before the fall?
You know, I think somebody brought it up before. I sense that the intent was one of equivalence, difference but equivalent. You know, someone who was his equal, but who was reflective of differences that would allow him to grow in relationship. So she comes with different organs, different capacities, and the two of them together makes for a wholeness that they could not have separately. But I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm sensing that that they were equals. And then when the fall came, and I think Paul asked the question about whether or not what happened after the fall, was it descriptive or was it prescriptive? But after the fall, I think it describes what happens to people. But
Adam
previous
wasn't
to the
leading.
fall, they were equal.
So Adam wasn't the leader, and Eve was not the helper.
I don't think that one was leader and helper. I think they were equal. I remember GP, you had asked that. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you think about it, Adam was there alone before Eve came along. So he understood when Eve came on board what she brought to the table, because he existed without her. Eve came into play and Adam was already there. So it's almost like you are looking, if somebody is there ahead of you, you are looking to them for some type of guidance or leadership.
Not only a few minutes. I mean, it's all on the 6th day. Wasn't like Adam was getting a 401k and then Eve showed up.
But still, there was
have a job.
Even in those seconds.
I mean, Adam looked around. All Adam did was a little bit of zoology and realized ain't nobody here for me. And
so
next
thing you know, say that it was purposeful for Eve to be created the way she was, and to provide a certain, what's the word I want to use? A certain value to relationship that Adam could not provide for himself.
Yeah.
So, the bottom line is that does make them equal. I just think that if we go back to the biblical narrative, Eve was not and is not an accessory to Adam.
Right.
But sometimes we perceive her as an accessory.
Mm-hmm.
She's not an accessory. She's a major creation.
Mm-hmm. I just want to take the topic to this just for a little bit. I know we're running out of time, but with this desire for conservatism, returning to the roles of the woman is to do this, the male is to do that, right? Could it come from our gender biases with income? We know there are a lot of women now who are receiving high salaries. Mm-hmm. Is there a question of intimidation on behalf of the male partner with those women who have high salaries? What say you?
I think there's
in the Western culture, absolutely.
I think we're trying to figure out how to function. I think there's a functionality question here, right? So if we don't have that traditional homemaker, homekeeper individual, how do we, manage the day-to-day tasks that we both need to function and to thrive? Who's taking care of the kids and all that kind of stuff? Now, unfortunately, there are a lot of men that are against progression. But honestly, in these unaffordable United States that we're living in, how do you not have a 2-income household, unless you're making, that kind of money, there's some practicality issues at hand. And how do we manage these tasks? And unfortunately, a lot of us men didn't learn how to do simple tasks. And so we throw the burden onto one person. We say, well, my mother did it this way, therefore you need to fulfill that role in my life, without taking in our present context. And then also, women are progressing a lot faster than men in singlehood. Mm-hmm. They're buying more homes. They're achieving, higher degrees. They're going further in career paths. And so how do we integrate these two individuals that are living very different lives at times into one unit, one cohesive unit, without that friction? How do we manage those smaller tasks
without one saying, I don't need a man, or I don't need because I have?
One of my friends said to
Correct.
me, man, what are you going to say to your wife if she's making 5 times your salary? I'm going to say to her, what would you like me to cook for dinner tonight, dear?
Now is why does that cause tension between the husband and the wife, or the dating couple, or the friends that might be looking at each other for more a stronger relationship? Why? What is it? Does the male feel intimidated that the woman makes more money, or does he feel like the woman is disrespectful because she feels that she doesn't have a need for any assistance, maybe monetarily? What say ye?
I feel like, I know I'm not a man, I can't speak for men, but I do feel like there's some level of, society is telling us as men we're providers and we are the head, and with all of that comes, well, if I'm the head, if I'm the provider, that means I need to be making more money than her. I need to, be out there, representing for the men and for the men. And so there's this responsibility of you putting this pressure on me to be this, but you're not providing a space, or you're in the space where I'm supposed to achieve that. And so sometimes men don't necessarily like to see women in leadership because it feels like you're taking the place that where I should be, or this is these roles were reserved for me so I can maintain my status as the man, as the leader, as the provider. And you want me to do all these things, but here you are in the place where I need to be in order to accomplish those things. So I feel like there's some level of a little bit of resentment of, you're taking over, but yet you still have all these demands.
Now, it's been a long time since I've been married, a long, long time, but I remember something. When you get married, don't you
Precious
pool
memories.
everything together? I mean, what she makes,
Let's
what
talk
he
about
makes,
that.
you pool together to make your family successful. It's not, well, how much do you bring to the table? How much is what we bring to the table together as a family, where we can then take care of our responsibilities. Hey, can put this to the side for family growth. Put this is for you, this is for me. We got our own little change that we could spend how we want to. What happened to that versus, no, that's your money and this is my money?
Well, Shepherdess Marlena, we're in an era and time where, okay, so let's go back to history. So a lot of women, younger women, their mothers who have gone through some interesting situations are telling them to never put all your money in the pot.
Mm-hmm.
That you use the man's money and you keep your money to the side. That's survival.
Yep.
That is survival, right? Now women are coming out again. They're making money, and I'll celebrate that all day long. And I want to make sure I'm regurgitating the views of other people. These are not my views. Okay, all right. Let me just put that out there. Where you're meeting a woman who doesn't feel like she needs. GP mentioned this. She necessarily needs you. She wants someone, but she doesn't need you in the same way that her mother, her grandmother needed. And the tonality of the conversation is a little bit different. That some men are feeling that women are belittling because you're not of a certain status in life, right? So a few months ago, there was the big discussion online about a woman saying that she would never date a bus driver. You
Right.
need to own the bus and not be the bus driver, right?
Have mercy.
We're having some of those conversations where a woman is saying, well, if you're not making, 6 figures, if you're not 6 feet tall, you don't have a 6-pack, then you don't qualify for me.
Or 6 inches. Yep.
And so there's these conversations that are happening amongst women.
It's a podcast. Relax, people. Relax. No, yeah. If you don't have all these, I will not.
You don't have all these things.
To you.
Correct.
Yeah.
I will not. So you have to check off these lists that honestly are that speak only to the 1% of the 1%. So a lot of men are feeling overlooked. They're feeling unappreciated. They're feeling, so we do have a rise of these same men that feel like they're from the shadows. They don't get the same attention from women, that feel like they're good men, whatever that may mean. And so here's a rising voice, once again, of these guys that are espousing these things. And they have the loud microphones. They have their own podcast. They have all this stuff. And so they finally feel heard and seen, and what they're hearing and seeing is the push to, let's go back to the 1940s. Life was good for men back then. Let's go back to the traditional conservative ways where we can have, a family here and one down the block and one around the corner. Let's go back to some of these things. And let's be men, let's make men great again. Let's make men great again. That's the campaign, essentially.
And doesn't that lead to, that lead to then the misunderstanding of the role of the man, not as protector, but sometimes as dictator? And so it can lead to the abuse of, if the woman is in the home, she's dependent on him for monies. I mean, we remember the roles. Our parents stayed home. Our mom stayed home, and dads worked, and the woman was dependent on the husband to give them money, to buy groceries, to take care of things, and so some women have lived in households where it wasn't the nicest environment, right? And so they're like, we're never going to be like that, right? And it's similar to what you were saying, Miguel, because moms have taught, listen, but I was taught you can participate in the needs of the household, but always have your little stash to the side in case you ever had to take flight, in a bad situation. Not a bad
There's
thing.
no full commitment. No full commitment. Always a backup plan.
Well, I think when we also need to consider human behavior pre-war and post-war. During World War I and World War II, many of this nation's men went off to die.
Yes.
They were fighting in a war, and women were left behind in the factories, raised the children, working every day, making sure, everything is paid for. So we need to take all of these cultural shifts and changes into consideration to our present human behavior. And then we're bombarded with other cultural missteps and fantasies. You can sit and watch a car commercial and see a woman very fashionably dressed, driving a $75,000 car. And we have, through those few seconds, been programmed to believe that's me, or that should be me. And so it skews our judgment about other people. We get very materialistic, and that skews our judgment of character. You may run into a woman or man that does not fit all those materialistic molds, but they could be one of the brightest, caring, loving people in the world.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate that compliment.
Oh, you're welcome, Bill.
Now, I will give you a true testimony. Because of the successes that God has given me, you always think of marrying someone at your level, right? I used to always appreciate that, and had my ideal of a male partner at my level.
66666.
What does that mean at my level? What does that unpack?
Maybe finances, education. Yeah, education, finances, right? And I had a friend of mine. They're a couple, and very good friends of mine, and they had to stay at my house for some time. And he's a very nice blue collar worker, the sweetest ever. And that man could fix anything around my house that I needed. I mean, he was the best. That changed me forever. And a very godly man. And it changed me forever. And I said, there's good men in all packages. And I would take a bus driver. I would take
All right.
mechanic. I would take.
All right.
They're good. You want to find a person with good quality, spirituality, as well as mental ability, because you want somebody mentally sound, right? And just a person of good heart, not how much they make or their educational level, because it's what you all bring to the table together.
Excuse me, Marlena. There's a gentleman on the phone he's on his bus route who's asked if he could get your number.
So that is one thing we should look at. But listen, as we are soon to close, do you think that men and women should be equal?
Yes.
Did God create them equal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, he did.
All right.
You can be equal with different roles.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
What does that look like,
Absolutely.
Chuck? Tell us what
Come
that
on,
looks
come
like.
on.
Somebody can't just hear the words. They got to see what it looks like.
Well, until I grow a womb, I'm hoping that my wife will bear the children.
There's a surgery for that, by
it's
the way.
complex in a sense because it means different things to different people. Roles are defined by individuals, and roles are defined by a couple.
Mhm.
It's not like and see, that's our problem. I think, my opinion, that's our problem in this society. We always set these rules
Right.
and create these boxes to check,
Mhm.
and we don't freely think anymore. We don't have the time to look at someone's character. We're looking at income, looks, clothes, car,
Status. Yep.
status,
Mhm.
and we're not even given a chance to think and spend time with someone who has the relationship dynamics that complements you.
And Chuck, I hear what you're saying. It all sounds good. But now if you get into a relationship, somebody's got to work. Somebody's got to have a job. And
Absolutely.
I think that as a woman, you're looking for a man to be able to provide something, and so
Yes, and there are some men that look for women to provide something.
you are so
No,
correct. Yeah,
forever.
you are so correct.
Yeah, so it really, we've come up with these rules that are heavily Western culture intimidating, as a matter of fact. It's intimidating and it's insulting to our intelligence. I won't look your way because you don't look like the kind of person that all these boxes I got to check. That person could be a millionaire. And I used to work, before I worked for the conference, I worked for the state government, and some of my colleagues were millionaires, but you'd never know it.
Wow.
Walked around in jeans, shirt out. These were very intelligent, well-educated researchers, had nothing to flaunt, nothing to show, drive to work in a Rambler. Then I learned at home he had 2 Mercedes-Benz in the garage. So looking at them, you say, oh gosh, that's a scruffy guy. I don't know if I want to, spend any time or get to know that person. I think we cut ourselves short when we prejudge. We prejudge when we do that.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to look at some of the comments, but before I do that, just a quick comment is that it seems like our conversation shifted to more the relationship side of how we relate to the opposite sex. And I think it's very important for us to think about how, even in the workspace, some of those biases kind of find their way in there in terms of how we treat coworkers, whoever, they could do this particular job, but not this job, or, things of that nature. So it bleeds, or some people have one standard for their household and a totally different one when it comes to interacting with the opposite sex in other spaces.
And Tosh, the inequality in pay. Men make more monies than women doing the same jobs. I think that, this gender war encases a lot of things. Of course, we couldn't talk about all things, but I would say, as we wrap up my panel of experts, what would you like to share as a take-home message to those who are listening to us abroad and across the world, the airways? What would you like to share as a take-home message concerning our gender wars?
Well, I'll say this to all the bitter ladies out there. Listen to me. You just got angrier just now, but listen to me. Listen to me now. Men are not the enemy. I'll stop.
But no, it's funny. I was gonna put this comment up before you started. Oh, I'm sorry, not that one.
I was gonna say.
It's like, huh? It's like, huh?
Just to be clear, there is an enemy, but men are not
This
your
is
enemy.
the one I was going to put up. This is what it seems to be is an unraveling of social norms and constructs that perhaps God never intended. And, sometimes we're looking at sometimes the new trends have impacted some of the old norms. So, because things have shifted, but there was another comment that she made too, because this was kind of a thread. Sharice, we thank you for being so interactive with us tonight. A lot of times we pay attention to the noise that we hear on social media, and we think that represents what it is. And a lot of times what we're hearing is really a minority of the way that people are thinking.
Mhm.
We interpret it as this is what is expected, and we follow those things instead of having our own thoughts and giving our own insight to things. I also wanted to point out, I'm just trying to get some of the comments in there that we could hear. Paul Bennett was saying the woman being a helper was a huge responsibility. Sometimes we downplay that as she was just the helper, that out. And I wanted to Amari that nowadays in two-person head household where income isn't significantly higher than the norm, it's economically more advantageous for one parent, often mom, to stay home when they have daycare and children. Yes.
Them daycare costs are like college tuition these days.
Oh,
Have
yes.
mercy.
Yeah, it's expensive. Yeah.
The women say my is ours and her
Her
money
money is hers.
Yeah.
we did see
Happy wife, happy life, huh?
that. And Captain Jackson said we need to look for great character and teamwork. Work together.
We lost your
Mike
voice
is
there,
going out.
Tasha.
You did? I'm sorry.
Now you're back.
It's
There you
clear
go.
now.
Yeah, he was saying great character and teamwork are the things that we working together and looking at each other should operate under.
And M. Williams stated that Charles is still out there looking for a rambler.
Some people don't know.
Better than a horse and buggy, right, Chuck? Better than a horse and buggy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I didn't get to all the comments, but we're definitely reading them, and thank you guys.
And Havis says that you can take your daddy's name or you can take my name, but you ain't hyphenating them.
That's a whole conversation.
Feel like the hyphenation, huh? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, all I can say is when it's all said and done, when none of us have anything, it's our character that will be the most valuable.
Amen.
Yep.
That's what all of the men that
you can't hang it on riches. You have to hang it on character.
Yeah.
When I was in seminary with all of my friends as males, we would notice the women and we would always say, look at the character on that woman. And that was just the way we thought and the way we acted.
See, that's why you divorced Tally, because you didn't look at the character of the woman.
So cold, so cold. I mean, so cold. Just cut me deep, didn't she, y'all? Just cut me deep.
Oh man.
Just cut me deep.
The war continues.
Miguel, you got a take home message.
Walk with the Lord today and be a blessing.
How true. And I just want to say, listen, let's not be at war, but be at peace with one another. Let's love and respect each other as God intended it to be. And I think, when you're looking for people, look for good quality people, not someone to just, I know, I mean, I've been to all those dating classes, the seminars about, being extremely compatible. And that is important, but that doesn't have to mean with money, right? So don't be focused on money, but learn to love and respect each other, male and female. And I think we'll have happier homes, happier work environments, happier society when we all work, love, and respect each other.
That's right.
And if you're driving a bus right now, there's a church in Willow Grove that's looking for a man like you.
You don't know how much bus drivers make today.
Oh, yeah. I have some friends who are bus drivers. Yeah, they do very well.
Or a UPS delivery man.
Yeah.
Don't sleep. Don't sleep.
Money.
With a great character. You can't forget that. Great character.
Yeah.
What can Brown do for you? Come on now,
Yeah,
brother.
right. I think there's one thing we left out, and I just want to say it in closing, is that having a common interest is so important.
It is.
When the two of you, married or not married, but just male and female, trying to relate to each other, many times a common interest will bring people together, and even the playing field, as we have tried to define it. If you have similar interests, that's very important.
I agree. Well, I think we've called a ceasefire on this war. Recognize that when we appreciate each other and the different things that we bring to the table as our individual genders, that we can recognize that we have a lot that we can do that complement each other and help each other. And so there's no need. We're not in competition, guys. You know, we're working together to fulfill our God-given purposes.
I want to commend your husband, Tasha, for the subtle way that he sent a message to you during Valentine's Day. He gave you something from Cinnabon. And that was like a cinnamon roll. That was his way of reminding Tasha, look, you need to know your role. You know? So, I mean, that was very wise on his part.
I like how you tied that into the end.
And tell us that it is a sweet role. You have a sweet role.
And a desired role.
Because of sin, remember your role, right?
Well said.
All these poets. This is
a biblical point. There we go.
All right, guys. Once again, thank you for hanging out with us this evening. We'll see you back here.
Hi, Michelle.
Same time, same place, because if it's Sunday,
let the war begin.
The podcast.
Thanks, Marlena. Have a great day, everyone.
Blessing, guys.
Take care.
Bye.